Hi everyone, and welcome to Map Mavin use cases. Today we're going to cover the use case of a college, university, or school that maybe wants to give a soft introduction to their students on the power of GIS without having to go through all of the bells and whistles of a more complex and expensive GIS system. Map Maven allows these users to get on, upload data, see what GIS can do and the information that it can show and reveal to people inside of a GIS without having to have ArcGIS or QGIS. This is really meant for a sort of introduction to geography class in order to get students more interested in taking a more complex GIS class. So this is sort of a soft introduction. They can get their feet wet, they can get a better understanding of how GIS works and the power that it can give people to solve problems and to display information in a geographic way. So in this use case, a college or university has purchased a 2-month subscription plan to Map Maven and with a couple of users so that their students can get in just for an introductory project and maybe for a end of year project and get a sense of how this works. So they're given a really short project to do, and their job is to upload some freely available information. So they're prompted to go on to an open portal and download some information, and the assignment says download some census data, download information on low-income housing in Denver, and get that information and show it in a way that's useful. So these students have already uploaded all this information here. So we have parks, we have after-school programs, we have affordable housing units, we have census information, we have income level by household, and then there's another layer showing where they plan to have more low-income housing. So this can give students a sense of where the need is in Denver. So where is there already low-income housing? Where are more people with low income? Where are the existing units? And where do the units need to go? So they can go into like HUD Income Levels. And here we have all these data sets here. Each one has information on where the income levels stand for each unit. So let's say we want to get a sense of how many people are in the low to moderate or just low income level. And we have students go into the symbology tab, and they can use the color ramp. Actually, we'll have them use conditional styling. So for this one, we'll say if they are low income, we just want to show all the places that have low income numbers that are high. And you can do that either with doing the conditional styling of classes. In that way you can say anyone over a certain amount will show up as a different color. Or they can come and do a chloropleth map of that as well. And with the chloropleth you can say, we just want to show levels, a ramp of people who have just low income. So here if we do that, you'll see that in the darker areas you're looking at places where there are higher numbers of people on a lower income. And that's very useful information for them to see. Very quickly you can tell that people who live in the downtown area or even in the sort of outskirts area have a higher level of income, while the lower income levels tend to be on the east side, the south side. So it's very useful information. They can go ahead and save that. And then from there, we can get a sense of where the zones are. So in this one, you look at this area, it tells you that this area is a low-cost neighborhood. So housing here is already pretty cheap. It probably doesn't need to have more low-income housing, while an area here might be high because everything is super expensive in 5 Points, and so it's a higher cost area. So if we say here that we want to see where more low-income housing is planned to go in, this is a good place to use the conditional styling. So here students can say if the zone equals high, I'd like it to be something red. So this is an area that could really use more low income housing. But we're also going to set the transparency to pretty high so that when you overlay it with other data sets, they'll be able to see sort of what does that tell you about the people and the income levels in those areas. So how many people are living there who are on low income, and maybe that's the reason why they need so much of this housing. So we're going to keep that. So now you can see these are the areas where they plan on having higher low income housing. And then we'll add another rule and say if the zone equals medium, let's make it yellow. Same deal. Gonna give it a yellow color. Increase the transparency so you can see what's underneath it. And then we'll do one more, and we'll say if the zone equals low, we don't want to see it at all. It's just going to kind of get in the way. So I'm going to increase the transparency to 100% and leave it there. And then we'll finish. So if we just take these two data sets at first, create a new map. And with this, students can just try one or two things, automatically create a new map. And as part of the assignment, they'll be required to make sure they have all this information. They have web map names, they have descriptions. So they're getting used to putting in metadata, even if it's very basic, so that people have a sense of what's going on. And then to add specific information to the map. So we want the two we've already worked on. Say OK, and even before they create the map, they can already get a sense of what they're looking at here. So these areas where they plan on having these lower income housing units, you can see here already, this red area, that they have some areas with relatively high low income coming out underneath it. But overall, the people that live there have moderate income levels, and that's because there isn't any available low-income housing, so it makes sense that they plan to have more low-income housing in these areas. While in areas that are darker, where more low-income people live, where housing is cheaper, they have no intention of adding more cheap housing for these people. So students can already get a sense of how useful GIS is and how it can display information in a way that can be useful to somebody else. So while people may say, well, in downtown, it's really expensive, people on low income can't live there, but they have to work there. You know, we need to have more low income housing. It's easy to say, but it's not as easy to see. And by seeing it, it becomes more powerful. And to get students into the GIS field, this is a very useful tool. It's very quick. It only took us a couple minutes to get a sense of why GIS is important here. So with this, we'll finish and create a map. And then students can go in and look at that map. They can turn layers on and off, they can share it, and they can get that sort of sense of what it's like to work with a GIS. And then this is pretty basic, it's only 2 layers. They can go back into the layer section and, you know, just to get a sense of other things, because those are all polygons. This is another polygon, but they can go in and say, make a traditional cartographic map. You know, what would this look like? Parks usually green, so they can go in and mess around with this and make different maps, and also look at the cartographic aspect of making a map, adding in roads, layers, points of interest, things that would be interesting to them. And by going through these open data portals, they can see the kind of information that's readily available to people, and how easy it is to get, and sometimes how hard it is to get information. And that lesson in and of itself is very useful. So here they can add in parks. They can also go in and say, well, if we look at that information from a different perspective, if we say, now that I have all this information about where is it cheap, where is it expensive to live, maybe I want to look at where can I live. You know, I know now where it's cheaper to live, but let's say I have kids and I want to know where are the after-school programs because I work. I need to know where I can drop my kids off. It's got to be relatively convenient for me. So now they can take this point file about after-school programs. They can go in, maybe change the icon to something that looks more like a school, or possibly a croissant. We'll go with this one. And now they have this place of worship, but imagine it's a school. Now they have these POIs of these schools, and they can overlay that same information into the map. So they go back into the map they've already made, add in this additional layer, move it to the top so you can actually see it. Boom, now they have this map. And it can show something slightly different just by adding in one more piece of information. And let's say they don't care about the low-income housing, they can turn that off and they can say, all right, you know, I work in downtown, but I live over here where it's cheaper. Does it make sense to drop my kid off at an after-school program here or where I live downtown? You can get a sense of where that's available, and maybe I don't want to live over in this area because there's no place for me to drop my kids off. So they can get an extra sense, an extra layer of information as to, while this map is super useful in one way, how else is it useful and how else can I get more information from geographic information systems. And the whole point of this is that now they're interested, and these schools can then say, we have this great GIS program, you should come check it out. We can offer and continue to offer more funding the more interest that they have. It's hard to start a program on GIS when you can't get people interested to begin with. So instead of taking a couple of months in an introduction to geography class on how to set up a map and how to make data points, this is a very easy introduction for them so that they can then push them on to a more intensive GIS program like ArcGIS. So that is our use case for today. The nice thing about this as well is they can then share this information with other students and get used to how everything is really going online. So now, when I maybe first learned ArcGIS, putting it online wasn't as big of a deal, but now it's a much larger part of sharing information. And this allows you to do the same thing of sharing that information and seeing what other people can get out of that. So thank you for joining me today for our Map Mavin use case on using Map Mavin to give an introduction to GIS to students at both the high school and college levels. If you have any questions, you can give us an email at support@mapmavin.com or sales@mapmavin.com. Thank you so much, and have